Claressa Shields' jealousy towards Remy Ma has clearly backfired on her, and yet she keeps overlooking every sign pointing to that. Honestly, her own stubbornness seems to be what's keeping her blind to it. All she'd have to do is take a step back and really look at what this man is doing. Because you all remember what went down this past weekend. Nobody was surprised by how it played out, if we're being honest. A lot of people already felt like the whole matchup wasn't fair to begin with. She was in the ring against someone a full decade older than her, with a completely different level of experience behind them. Everyone kind of saw that coming. And it's telling that she doesn't seem to connect the dots on how she's gone from a two-time Olympic gold medalist to someone whose fights are now getting questioned for their legitimacy. People were genuinely asking whether it was even real because the gap felt like night and day. And if she can't see how that mirrors what's happened with this whole Remy Ma situation, going after someone whose lane she seemed to admire and want for herself, then that's on her. It started with the style, and then something shifted. Because in her mind, she clearly felt some kind of slight, some perceived disrespect. That's basically the same pattern that played out with Laila Ali. Laila had been in her corner, offering advice, promoting her, interviewing her, genuinely building her up. Then one day, in an interview where Claressa wasn't even remotely on her mind, Laila simply said that nobody right now could pull her out of her 13-year retirement. That's all it was, a woman saying she's in a different chapter of her life. Nothing more. But instead of taking that in stride the way you'd hope someone would toward a person they respected and who'd helped them, Claressa took it personally, even though it had nothing to do with her. That turned into an imagined slight in her head, and from there, she went after Laila hard, throwing out insults, claiming she was better than her, completely out of nowhere. And it really does seem to trace back to some root of envy, wanting what someone else had, and when that admiration didn't get reciprocated the way she wanted, it flipped into resentment. The same pattern seems to be playing out with Remy Ma. We all saw the old text messages, the old DMs. This goes back to around 2022, where she was reaching out to Remy directly, complimenting her style, asking who did her looks, how she could get something similar. Remy even referenced it in one of her newer tracks, how people were sliding into her DMs trying to study her style, essentially trying to absorb everything about her, from her fashion down to her relationship. So something clearly shifted, because at this point, it doesn't really feel like this was ever truly about Papoose. The way she carries herself, the things she says, the way she's responded to all of this, it points to something deeper than that. This has always circled back to Remy and some perceived wrong that existed mainly in Claressa's head. We touched on this in another video too, tying it back to deeper, unresolved issues shaping how she views these other women, some kind of internal narrative building around a slight that, in reality, may never have existed. But here's what she's missing. Whatever she thinks she's gained out of all this, Remy Ma is the one actually coming out ahead. She got a situation off her plate, got him off her couch, out of her house, and now she's letting everyone see his true colors for themselves. Because before, when Remy was speaking up about what she'd been going through, a lot of people didn't believe her. They assumed he'd been loyal, been solid. They weren't buying her side of it. But now, because of how this jealousy played out and pulled Claressa into the middle of it, it's actually worked in Remy's favor. And that's a big part of why she's winning right now, channeling all of it into her artistry and her music to process what she's living through. That's not unusual either. Taylor Swift does the same thing. Plenty of musicians turn to their craft to work through real life. So the narrative that Remy's just being bitter doesn't hold up. She's using her talent, her musical ability to process her own experience, which is exactly what successful artists do. She's turning a hard situation into something productive, and that's genuinely admirable, showing people that you can take a rough situation and turn it into something worthwhile. That's the real example being set here, not the one running around with someone else's husband.
Okay, that's fair. Her actual boxing ability is getting pushed to the side because everybody is focused on what happened. That's the problem now. People can't even look at that most recent event as something they should celebrate because there are way too many questions about why she was in the ring with somebody 10 years older than her in the first place. Seriously, what exactly was that supposed to be? And then you have the whole towel situation. People notice that multiple towels seem to be coming flying in at almost the exact same time, when normally you would expect one towel to be thrown in to signal that the fight needs to be stopped. Then there was that interview Claressa did the day before the fight. During the weigh-in, she was sitting down talking about the whole "I don't beef, I beat" mentality, and somebody asked her, "When are you going to KO her, champ? When are you going to knock her out?" Then they followed up by asking whether it would happen in the 6th or 7th round. Claressa responded with that 67 gesture that kids have been doing lately, and then she initially said she would get it done in the 6th. Right. And remember, this was before the fight even happened. Then, almost immediately, she changed her answer and said, "No, the 5th. She'll do it in the 5th. Again, that was the day before the match, and at the time, it already felt a little strange to me. But after everything that happened in the 6th round, people started looking back at that moment differently. Because again, nobody was really questioning who would win this fight. Exactly. The outcome was never really the mystery. The real question was always when it would end. That was the only thing people wanted to know. Exactly. And one of the biggest reasons this conversation is happening now is because Remy actually warned her about something like this back in 2025. She did. Remy specifically told her not to do anything that could eventually put her in this kind of position. And now look where everything has ended up. Exactly. Remy even repeated that message in another post, I believe it was on Twitter, when she said, "I am not your enemy." She absolutely did. She was genuinely trying to help this girl, but the jealousy between them completely changed the situation. Now she doesn't seem to understand just how much this entire situation has turned her life upside down. And honestly, this man should have no connection to anything she's doing at this point, yet somehow he continues getting attention simply because of his association with her. That's exactly right. Before all of this, nobody was really checking for Pop unless the conversation was about how he supposedly held Remy down, and we've already established that he was being paid to stay around while she was locked up. So how exactly is that considered holding somebody down? He didn't even have to go to work. She was covering the apartments he was living in while she was incarcerated. She was paying those expenses with her own money while she wasn't even in a position to benefit from any of it. Exactly. That doesn't sound like holding somebody down to me. And people act like he deserves credit simply because he stayed around. But we already know it wasn't about loyalty or fidelity either, especially after what came out about what happened while she was away. That's right. So again, what exactly did he do to hold her down? Oh, he used her money to cover the bills that he had accumulated. That's the great support he supposedly provided. You know how he really held her down? Yeah, literally. In the most literal sense possible. Literally. And that's exactly why she's doing so much better now, because he's no longer sitting on her couch.
He can't keep claiming he's the one holding her down anymore because this woman is absolutely taking off. She has her own network, she has movie opportunities, and her music is doing extremely well. She's taken everything she's been through and turning those lemons into lemonade through her music. Exactly. And then you have Claressa acting like none of this bothers her, when honestly, every negative comment she makes about Remy that isn't even true only makes it more obvious how affected she really is. Exactly. Everything she does seems to come back to that, including the constant comparisons and copying. Even the outfit she wore after the fight looked like a callback to something Remy had worn only a few months earlier. And then there was the weigh-in, where people noticed similarities between what she was wearing and the look Alicia had previously shown. Exactly. And somebody will probably say, she didn't copy her, the hairstyle was completely different. But that misses the point. It was the entire presentation, from the suit to the fur, even down to the pose with her tongue sticking out. All of that jealousy and desire for what somebody else has seems to have completely clouded her ability to recognize what's actually happening. Now she's even bragging about this tiny tattoo that Papoose supposedly got. A tiny tattoo. And what makes it even crazier is something she said during one of these interviews. She was basically arguing that because he got her name tattooed, that proved his feelings were genuine. That is one of the most ridiculous arguments I've ever heard. This man already has the 5 boroughs of New York City tattooed on his finger. So what exactly does that prove? Right, it doesn't prove anything. And we already know he has a full-size image of Remy tattooed on himself. Yet now he gets this tiny little tattoo on his upper arm somewhere that can easily stay hidden underneath the shirt. Then, on the night of her biggest fight, she has to announce to everybody that he got her name tattooed on him instead of letting the tattoo speak for itself, because he keeps it covered.
And at the same time, he's also hiding just how angry he really is with his wife Remy Ma. This man is clearly carrying a lot of resentment. And some of what he's doing appears to be motivated by spite. Exactly. What's funny is that she keeps taking these moments that reveal his actual behavior and somehow turning them into evidence that proves the opposite. That's what jealousy and covetousness can do. It can completely distort how somebody interprets the signs in front of them, whether they're doing it intentionally or simply refusing to see what's obvious. And there was another moment that really showed this. After the fight, she appeared on Shannon Sharpe's show, and they started discussing how she follows certain restrictions during training camp. She explained that for the final 6 weeks, she avoids intimacy. Right. She was talking about how long she and Papoose had supposedly gone without being intimate, and Shannon and Acho were joking about how men usually react when that happens. They were basically saying, you know how men get when they're not getting any. And she responded by saying, listen, an undisciplined man is not a good man. But then she also talked about Papoose being around throughout the entire process, even mentioning that he was sneaking chocolate cake into the kitchen while she was in the bedroom. And I'm sitting there thinking, you just gave us an example of a man doing something that shows a lack of discipline, then immediately used that same situation to describe him as disciplined. She basically contradicted herself without even realizing it. That's how far jealousy and covetousness can take somebody away from reality. She's convinced that she's winning some kind of prize, when what she actually has is a man who has attached himself to her in much the same way he previously attached himself to Remy, using that relationship to gain attention and benefit from her platform. And she seems to believe that she's gotten something special out of it. But maybe all she really needs to do is step back, open her eyes, sit down, and honestly examine what's happening. If she can let go of that jealousy and stop allowing covetousness to control her thinking, maybe she can finally see the situation clearly again and get back to a place where she can honestly say, I am in my right mind. That's it. That's all.